Welcome to this introduction of the North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development. As I'm going through this introduction, I would suggest that you have your Foundations book with you either as a hard copy or on your computer as a PDF, because I will be referring to several pages throughout the document and this presentation. So I would encourage you to have your document available so that you can turn to those pages with me. So let's just get started in introducing you a little bit to the North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development. Many of you may already know a few things about it, and hopefully you already took the pre-assessment about the North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development before you are watching this presentation. As some of you may already know as well, the shortened version for this document, NC Feld, and that's just the acronym for North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development. And throughout this presentation, I will probably either refer to this document as NC Feld or just Foundations. Foundations, it was created as one document that articulates our state's early learning and development goals for children on a continuum that includes infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. At one time, we had two documents, one for infants and toddlers and one for preschoolers. And now they've combined them into this one wonderful document, which I just really appreciate because you can see on one page the goals that we have for every age group. And so this is very helpful to have. So you can see what a child might be doing before that particular age or range of age, and then also what they would be doing in the future, in the next stage of development, which is really nice to have right there, all on one page. So it is a common set of goals and developmental indicators for children from birth through kindergarten entry. It's also a resource for teachers, caregivers, families, program administrators, public school personnel, community agencies, partners, and policymakers. And it's aligned or matched with the Common Core state standards and North Carolina's essential standards for kindergarten through 12th grade students. So what is it used for? Well, first it's used to confirm the importance of the first 5 years, as many of us know how important that is. It's also used to improve teachers' knowledge of child development, because it will show you, and as we look through it, you will understand just the wealth of information that is there for all of us to gain and learn more about child development. It's also used as a guide to implementation of an early care program. It will guide teachers' plans for implementing curricula, and we will again talk later in this course about how to use it in planning your lesson plans. It's also used to help understand how to support individual needs. You can establish goals for children's development and learning that are shared across programs and services. It's also used to inform parents and other family members on age-appropriate expectations for children's development and learning. It's also to lay the foundation for later school success. It's able to help us focus on early precursor skills for later learning. Foundations is designed to be used with all children. And just so you know, teachers do not need to memorize each of these for some type of assessment or evaluation. However, one should keep this document close by at all times to be used with all children. So let's quickly look at page 7. And I'm going to get out of the PowerPoint and let you look at page 7 on my electronic version here. So let's try to turn to page 7 together. On page 7, there is two columns here. One is goals and developmental indicators should be used to, and then the other column is should not be used to. So let's briefly just look at these. First, it should be used to promote development of the whole child, including physical, emotional, social, language, cognitive development, and learning characteristics. Secondly, it should be used to provide a common set of expectations for children's development and, at the same time, validate the individual differences that should be expected in children. And thirdly, promote shared responsibility for children's early care and education. So it's not just the teacher's responsibility, but it's a shared responsibility with parents, with other agencies, with directors, administrators, so that we can all help in that development for each child. Fourth, it is to emphasize the importance of play as an instructional strategy that promotes learning in early childhood programs. Because as we know, children learn through play. Fifth, it is to support safe, clean, caring, and effective learning environments for young children. Sixth, it is to support appropriate teaching practices and provide a guide for gauging children's progress. 7 is to encourage and value family and community involvement in promoting children's success. Kind of goes back to that other one we talked about, how it's a shared responsibility. And then 8, it is to reflect and value the diversity that exists among children and families served in early care and education programs across the state. All right, so then we move over to how the goals and developmental indicators should not be used. It's not to be used to stand in isolation from what we know and believe about children's development and about quality early education programs. This is not the only document that will support that. You know, there's just tons of research to help support all the different types of ways children develop and about quality early education programs. Second, it is not to serve as an assessment checklist or evaluation tool to make high-stakes decisions about children's program placement or entry into kindergarten, or whether or not you feel that they have a development issue. So we want to make sure that it's not served as an assessment checklist or evaluation tool. Third, limit a child's experiences or exclude children from learning opportunities for any reason. It should not be used for that. Fourth, it should not be used to set up conflicting expectations and requirements for programs. Should not be used in that way. Fifth, it should not be used to decide that any child has failed in any way. And then last and sixth, it is not to be used to emphasize child outcomes over program requirements. So there should be certain program requirements that this is not to be used to emphasize the child outcomes over your own program requirements. So let's just keep that in mind as we think about our foundations and when you use it and how to use it appropriately. Okay, so there are specific guiding principles, and you can find this on pages 13 and 14 from that same document. So let me try to switch over to that page, 13 and 14. And you will see that's where they start, the guiding principles. But we are going to go through each of these briefly in this presentation. But if you would like to look at your document on page 13 and 14 as we do this, that would be great. So principle 1 is development and learning across the full continuum from birth to 5 years, infant, toddler, and preschool, is important. It is extremely important. Each stage of a young child's development makes an important contribution to later success. What is being done early on is going to affect them later. Teachers and caregivers can use foundations as a guide to provide positive learning experiences from young children of all ages, starting at birth and continuing through the time the children enter kindergarten. That's principle 1. Principle 2, and we all know this, each child is unique and special in their own way, and foundations should be used as a guide to understand how development generally unfolds, but we must remember that children will differ in how and when they demonstrate progress in the areas described within the developmental indicators. Remembering at all times that each child is unique and each child is going to develop at their own pace, and not all children, even if they're the same age, not all children are going to be doing the same things at the same time. Principle 3 is that development occurs in predictable patterns. But again, an individual child's developmental progress is often uneven across different stages and across developmental domains. Even though each child is unique, we also know that there are some predictable steps or stages of development. But again, within our document, we need to remember that not every 12-month-old child is going to be walking right at 12 months, or that's when they're going to start walking. Some start earlier, some start later. So we just need to know that there are predictable steps or stages that children go through, but they're going to occur at different times. Principle 4, young children's learning is integrated across different areas of development, so foundations and learning experiences provided for children must address all domains. We can't skip out on a domain. Children's growth in the different domains cannot be separated because progress in one area is really going to affect the progress they make in other areas of development. One affects the other. Foundations and the learning opportunities that children experience must address all areas of their development in an integrated manner. They all just work together. Principle 5 is that many factors influence a child's development, including relationships with family members and others, and experiences within the home, early learning setting, and community. So it's important that teachers and caregivers pay very close attention to all aspects of a child's life in order to support his or her development and learning. Principle 6 is that each child develops within a culture. Isn't that an adorable picture? I just love that. Teachers and caregivers must be aware of children's cultural backgrounds because their families' beliefs, attitudes, values, and behaviors have a huge impact on the child's development and learning. And we need to know about that, and we need to understand it and support it. Principle 7 is that nurturing and responsive relationships are essential for healthy growth and development. Relationships with sensitive, caring adults are so important for children's development in all domains. It's going to be affected. Principle 8 is that children are active learners and they learn through play. Children need all the hands-on learning experiences we can give them in order to develop the skills and knowledge described in foundations. Principle 9 is that all children can learn and make progress in the areas defined in foundations. All children, no matter what their circumstances, can learn and make progress along the continuum of developmental indicators, as we will look at in just a few minutes. Principle 7 is that children with disabilities learn best in inclusive settings. Inclusive settings where education and support are individualized to each child will really benefit not only children with disabilities, but it will benefit all children. So we need to remember that children with disabilities learn best in inclusive settings. So now we're going to look briefly at the organization of North Carolina Foundations. It is organized in the document with 5 domains. There are 5 developmental domains. And following each introduction of the domain, you're going to find the goals and developmental indicators. And these goals and developmental indicators are guidelines that describe expectations for what children will learn prior to kindergarten, starting with infancy and covering all ages through kindergarten entry. The learning indicators now are not used as an assessment to decide whether a child is developing at a typical rate. They are just used as guidelines, and it's important for us to remember that. Now, there'll be goals that we want to make for each individual child, and we want to use possibly the indicators to help them meet goals, and there's going to be strategies listed that's going to help us to help each child meet those goals. However, those are not used as a checklist of an assessment that you're checking off just to be sure children can do this or this or this. We just want to make sure we have goals for each individual child and then help them to reach those goals. Following the goals and indicators for each subdomain, there are strategies for infants and toddlers and strategies for preschoolers. So we want to make sure that I just want to make sure you understand how this is laid out. And to help you understand a little bit better, let's look at page 4 in your document. And this kind of helps to lay out how these pages are used and how each one is laid out for the different areas. So let's say approaches to play and learning is the developmental domain. Okay, so you see that at the top. And then underneath that, you will see the subdomain, and there's several subdomains under each domain. And this subdomain is curiosity, information seeking, and eagerness. And then there's a goal listed, and there are several goals for each subdomain. But the goal here is goal APL, and APL stands for Approaches to Play and Learning. And APL 1 goal is children show curiosity and express interest in the world around them. Well, then under that particular goal, you will see developmental indicators laid out for each different age group. And again, these age groups are going to be, some will overlap with each other. Not necessarily a 12-month-old might be under infants, or it could be under younger toddlers. So, it just depends on where that child is developing. So let's keep that in mind, that there's a range of development, a range of ages for these developmental indicators. So we have infants, we have younger toddlers, we have older toddlers, younger preschoolers, and older preschoolers. And again, you'll just see here all those different great developmental indicators. So it provides more specific information about what children should know or be able to do at that specific age range. So that's how each of them are laid out. As you continue to look through your Foundations book, you will see on page 15, effective use of foundations with all children, including children with disabilities. And then on page 16, children from diverse language and cultural backgrounds and how to include them as well. And then on page 17, you'll see Foundations and Children's Success in School, which continues on to page 18. Page 19, again, this shows the standard alignment between Foundations and the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. You can see how each of these are lined up together. This works on that continuum that we are continually moving from the Foundations into the Common Core State Standards and North Carolina Essential Standards. Helping children make progress on foundational goals, and it takes everyone, and starting on page 20, it talks about the different roles that people will take, including the role of families. Page 21 continues on with the different roles of teachers, caregivers, administrators, public schools, policymakers, community leaders, and professional development providers, technical assistance providers, and higher education faculty. So this shows how it takes all of us to help make this a success for children. And then beginning on page 22, you'll see frequently asked questions, and that continues on to page 25. On page 26, it then begins talking about the different domains, and we will discuss this in different modules. I hope this was helpful, and welcome to the intermediate course for Foundations.